Hey guys, welcome to the video on acute responses to exercise in the muscular system. So today we'll have a look at the blood flow in the muscles, muscle and body temperature, oxygen supply, enzyme activity, motor unit recruitment, intramuscular substrate levels, ATP, carbon dioxide and lactate production. So first up is the motor unit recruitment. So a motor unit is a motor neuron, or the nerve that causes or sends the signal of movement to the muscles. So the motor neuron and all its motor fibers or muscle fibers connected. So obviously when you do more work or you exercise a lot more, you'd need to recruit a lot more fibers. So you've got, say for example, writing with a pen, which is a very fine skill, it's a very gentle skill, and it doesn't take many motor units. If you were, say, to go running, you're using a lot more muscles, you're using all of the muscle, so you'd be recruiting a lot more motor units. So blood flow to the muscle also increases when you exercise, and the reason for that being basically is because you need to deliver a lot more oxygen to them and also nutrients such as glucose. And then you also need to remove waste products from the muscle such as carbon dioxide and lactic acid. The muscle and body temperature is a big one. When you exercise, obviously your muscles are creating energy, and a byproduct of that is heat. So there's a lot of heat coming out of your muscles, and because of that, it sort of infiltrates into the blood carries it around, and so then your whole body is going to warm up. Now, the reason you sweat is to actually eliminate that heat. So the sweat will rise from the surface of the skin, taking the heat with it. Unfortunately, it takes quite a few minerals and also nutrients with it, so that's why we need to have things like Gatorade and food to replace them. Okay, enzyme activity also increases when you exercise. So enzymes are chemicals that help speed things up. When you start to exercise, you'll want a lot more ATP than you would when you were sitting down. So you don't need nearly as much energy to sit down than you do to exercise. So when you begin exercising in the muscles, you've got a little chemical hanging around called ATPase. So any chemicals basically with the word A's at the end is a enzyme. And so what it does is help speed up that energy production that involves ATP. O2 supply and use is also a big one, where your muscles will only be able to create energy with oxygen if you're doing an endurance sort of activity. So when you exercise, say for an intense short period of time, maybe 10 seconds or less, you can get away with just using ATP and PC. For any longer though, you'll need to start using glucose, and to avoid that lactic acid or that lactate buildup, you want to be using oxygen as well at a lower intensity exercise. So basically when you begin exercising, say you go from a walk to a jog, then your oxygen supply at the muscular level will increase, because it's part of the process to create energy. Intramuscular substrates is basically just a fancy word for the fuels that hang around inside the muscle. So when you're doing those short intense activities, ATP and PC, like I've mentioned previously, PC meaning phosphocreatine, they both decrease, obviously because you use them up to do the activity. Once they've been eliminated, then you start to use glycogen as a fuel to create more ATP. So ATP is the one molecule you'll keep using over and over again. It's just how you get it is a particular way. So when you're doing endurance activities, the glycogen and the triglycerides or fats are the fuels that will help contribute to creating ATP. When you're doing the intense exercise, phosphocreatine is the fuel or the molecule that will help create that ATP. Right, so like I've already mentioned, ATP production will obviously increase when you exercise, simply for the fact that you can only store about 3 seconds of it in your muscles, Once that's all gone, you have to keep creating more. So you'll make more with phosphocreatine, or you'll make more with the glycogen and the fats or the triglycerides. If you run out of sugars and fats, you end up using protein. Obviously, severe cases can be seen if you're looking up, say, Hawaiian triathlons, and there's some crazy people at the end, you know, they're dehydrated and they're starting to use protein. Another example is if someone is very, very, very thin, they've got no body fat left, they will start to be using proteins, which is basically in the form of their own body tissue, to create energy. There's no other way the body can make energy unless it's actually got proper levels of glucose or fat in them. So if there's nothing left, resorts to protein, and then that's how people start wasting away. CO2 or carbon dioxide also has an increase in production when you exercise. It's a byproduct of when the body uses oxygen to create energy, or ATP. So when you exercise, the carbon dioxide will leave the muscles, it will enter the bloodstream, and then the bloodstream will take it to the lungs where you breathe it out. And lactate production, lactate is a byproduct of lactic acid. So if you are working anaerobically, so that means without oxygen, then you will start to create large amounts of lactate. Okay, so just in summary, when you start exercising at the muscular level, these particular changes will occur. So the blood flow to the muscle increases, the muscle and body temperature increases, you will increase your oxygen supply and use. You'll also have an increase in enzyme activity, so the ATPase that I spoke about. You will also increase your use of motor units, so the amount of muscle fibers you use. The intramuscular substrate levels, so the ATP, PC, glycogen and triglycerides will all decrease because you're using them up as you exercise. ATP production increases because you need more energy for you to actually exercise. Carbon dioxide production increases because that's the byproduct of using oxygen when you exercise. And lactate production increases. So I hope you got all that, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks for watching.